Lucy Williams pressed her nose against the cool glass of the observation deck, watching the purple birds outside chase each other through the strange, twisted trees of New Haven. The 8-year-old had lived on this alien world for 3 years, now, but she still found the wildlife fascinating. Her parents worked as scientists at Research Station Alpha, studying all the Earth animals they had brought to this new planet. The facility stretched out below her like a small city, with white buildings connected by covered walkways. In the distance, she could see the massive enclosures where bears, wolves, and big cats roamed in spaces designed to feel like home. Her favorite spot was the small mammal section, where her mother studied creatures like foxes, raccoons, and the grumpy honey badger named Bruno. A flash of silver in the sky caught her attention. 3 sleek ships descended through the clouds, unlike anything she had ever seen. They moved with grace, landing softly in the main courtyard. Lucy ran down the hallway, her shoes squeaking on the polished floor. "Mom, Dad, ships are landing," she called out as she burst into the main lab where her parents worked. Dr. Sarah Williams looked up from her microscope, pushing her glasses up her nose. "Ships? What kind of ships, sweetie?" "Really shiny ones. They look like they're made of metal that changes color." Her father, Dr. Michael Williams, walked to the window. His eyes widened as he saw the alien vessels. "Sarah, you need to see this. Contact Director Hayes immediately." Within an hour, the entire research station buzzed with excitement. Humanity's first contact with an alien species was happening right here on New Haven. The beings that emerged from the ship stood nearly 9 feet tall, with smooth scales that shifted from deep red to gold depending on how the light hit them. They walked upright like humans but moved with the fluid grace of reptiles. Bony crests ran along their heads, glowing with soft blue light. The aliens called themselves the Crimson Talons. Their leader, who introduced himself as Commander Voss, spoke perfect English through a translation device attached to his throat. His voice was deep and smooth like honey poured over gravel. "We greet you, humans of New Haven," Commander Voss said to the assembled researchers and colonists. "We have traveled far to meet your species. We understand you have brought creatures from your home world to study here." Director Hayes, a kind woman in her 50s, stepped forward. "Welcome to our colony. We're honored by your visit. Yes, we have Earth wildlife here for research purposes. We're always happy to share scientific knowledge." The commander's crest flashed brighter blue. "Excellent. We are also students of life forms across the galaxy. Perhaps we could arrange a cultural exchange." Lucy watched from behind her parents as the adults talked. The aliens seemed polite, but something about them made her feel uneasy. Maybe it was how their yellow eyes never seemed to blink, or the way they held their hands with claws extended. That evening, the colonists prepared a welcome dinner in the main cafeteria. They decorated the space with earth flowers and served their best food. Lucy wore her favorite dress, the blue one with stars on it. She sat between her parents at one of the long tables. Commander Voss stood at the head table, his crest now pulsing with different colors. "Humans of New Haven, we thank you for this feast. Your hospitality is noted. We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples," Director Hayes replied, raising her glass. The commander's crest suddenly flashed deep red. His smooth voice turned cold. "Friendship? An interesting concept. On most worlds we visit, the inhabitants recognize their place in the natural order immediately." The room grew quiet. Dr. Williams shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "The natural order is simple," Voss continued, his claws clicking against his glass. "There are predators and there is prey. The strong hunt the weak serve the strong. This is how life works across all worlds we have conquered." "Conquered?" "Director." Hayes stood up slowly. Commander Voss smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Did we not make our purpose clear? The Crimson Talons have built an empire spanning 47 worlds. We collect the finest specimens from each planet for our arena games. Your species will provide excellent entertainment for our blood sports." The cafeteria erupted in shocked voices and scraping chairs. Lucy grabbed her father's hand, not understanding everything but knowing something terrible was happening. "You can't be serious," Director Hayes said, her voice shaking. "I am always serious about hunting. the commander replied. His crest now blazed bright red, and other talons around the room stood up, their claws extending. Your security forces are already being contained. Do not make this more difficult than necessary. To demonstrate his point, Commander Voss reached out with one clawed hand and grabbed Chief Peterson, the colony's head of security. The man was over 6 feet tall and built like a tree trunk, but the alien lifted him off the ground with no effort at all. Peterson's face turned red as he struggled uselessly against the grip. You see? Soft flesh against scale and claw, muscle against superior design. There is no contest. Voss dropped the security chief, who fell gasping to his knees. Panic spread through the room. Colonists ran for the exits, but more talons blocked the doorways. Children cried, adults shouted, and Lucy found herself being pulled along by her parents toward a side exit. The research facility, her mother whispered urgently to her father. If we can get Lucy to the small mammal section, she can hide there until help arrives. They ran through empty corridors as alarms wailed throughout the station. Behind them, Lucy could hear the heavy footsteps of alien hunters and the screams of people being captured. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. They reached the research facility just as the lights started flickering. The building's backup power was kicking in, but many systems were failing. Dr. Williams punched in the access code with shaking fingers. Lucy, listen to me very carefully. Her mother knelt down to look her in the eyes. You need to hide in the small mammal section. There are places between the walls where you can stay safe. Don't come out until we come back for you. What about you? Lucy's voice came out as a squeak. We have to help the other colonists, but we'll find you, I promise. Heavy footsteps echoed from the main corridor. The talons were searching every building. Go now, her father whispered, pushing open the door to the animal research area. Lucy ran into the darkened facility as her parents disappeared back down the corridor. She could hear them talking loudly to each other about checking the main lab, trying to lead the aliens away from her hiding spot. The small mammal section smelled like hay and animal musk. Emergency lighting cast weird shadows between the enclosures. Most of the animals seemed agitated, pacing in their spaces and making distressed sounds. Lucy crawled behind a bank of monitoring equipment, curling up in a space barely big enough for her small body. Outside, she heard her parents' voices get fainter, then suddenly cut off. New voices replaced them, the deep tones of alien hunters. Lucy pressed her hands over her mouth to keep from crying out loud as she realized she was now completely alone with creatures that wanted to hunt her like an animal. The building shook as something heavy moved through the corridors. The Crimson Talons had found the research facility and they were coming for her. 3 hours had passed since Lucy heard the terrible sounds of the hunt beginning. She remained crammed behind the monitoring equipment, trying not to move or breathe too loudly. The emergency lights had dimmed to save power, casting the animal research area in deep shadows. Strange noises came from other parts of the building. Metal doors sliding open and shut. Heavy footsteps. The sound of containment systems powering down. Lucy realized with growing fear that the alien attack had damaged the facility's main computer network. If the security systems were failing, that meant the animal enclosures might be failing too. A soft growling sound made her freeze. Something large was moving in the corridor outside the small mammal section. Lucy pressed herself deeper into her hiding spot, but she could hear the creature getting closer. The growling grew louder, accompanied by the sound of claws clicking on the floor. A massive shape appeared in the doorway. Even in the dim light, Lucy could see the outline of a huge brown bear. It was Atlas, one of the grizzlies her parents studied. The bear's enclosure must have opened when the systems went down. Lucy held her breath, knowing that surprising a frightened bear was one of the most dangerous things anyone could do. But Atlas didn't seem aggressive. He sniffed the air carefully, then looked directly at her hiding spot. Instead of charging or roaring, the big bear made a soft chuffing sound and moved past her toward the other end of the room. More animals appeared over the next few minutes. 2 gray wolves padded silently through the area, their yellow eyes scanning for threats. A sleek mountain lion crept along the wall, muscles rippling under its tawny coat. None of them paid attention to Lucy. It was as if they recognized she belonged here. The sound of metal being torn apart echoed from the main corridor. The Crimson Talons were forcing their way through locked doors, searching every room systematically. Lucy knew they would reach her section soon. A small brown shape scurried into view, moving with quick, determined steps. It was Bruno, the honey badger her mother had been studying for the past 6 months. Unlike the larger predators who moved carefully through the strange situation, Bruno seemed completely unbothered by the chaos. He trotted directly toward Lucy's hiding spot. "Bruno, no," Lucy whispered as quietly as possible. "You need to hide too." The honey badger looked at her with bright black eyes, then positioned himself between her hiding spot and the doorway. His fur started to puff out, making him look bigger than his 30 pounds. Lucy had seen him do this before when her mother brought new researchers to observe him. Bruno didn't like strangers. Heavy footsteps approached from the main corridor. A deep voice spoke in the alien language, followed by the electronic buzz of translation devices. Lucy could make out words about searching for remaining specimens and small prey items. A Crimson Talon appeared in the doorway. In the emergency lighting, the alien looked even more terrifying than before. Its scales gleamed dark red, and its crest glowed with hunting colors. The creature stood over 8 feet tall, with arms longer than any humans and claws that could tear through metal. The alien warrior stepped into the room, scanning the shadows with eyes that reflected the dim light like mirrors. Its gaze passed over the hiding spots where wolves and bears waited motionless, then fixed on the area where Lucy crouched. Bruno stepped forward. The honey badger planted himself directly in front of the massive alien and made a sound Lucy had never heard before. It was like a growl mixed with a hiss, full of challenge and absolute fearlessness. Bruno's fur stood completely on end now, and he began advancing toward the Talon warrior. The alien stopped moving and stared down at the small creature approaching. In Commander Voss's briefings, his hunters had learned about Earth predators. Bears were dangerous due to size and strength. Big cats were deadly because of speed and claws. Wolves were threatening because they hunted in packs. But this tiny furry creature was supposed to be harmless. According to their intelligence, honey badgers were scavengers that ate insects and small prey. They weighed less than most Talon infants. There was no logical reason for one to challenge a superior predator. Bruno reached the alien's feet and did something completely unexpected. Instead of backing down or running away, he reared up on his hind legs and swiped at the Talon's ankle with his claws. The warrior jerked backward, more from surprise than pain. The small creature's claws hadn't penetrated his scales, but the audacity of the attack shocked him. In 40 years of hunting across the galaxy, he had never encountered prey that attacked first. Bruno followed up his assault by charging directly at the alien's other foot. The Talon stepped backward again, confused by tactics that made no sense. Prey was supposed to run. That was how hunting worked. The predator chased, the prey fled, and eventually the predator won through superior speed, strength, or cunning. This creature was doing everything wrong. Lucy watched in amazement as the 30-pound honey badger began chasing the 8-foot alien warrior around the room. Bruno's strategy seemed to be pure aggression. Advance on all fronts, never give ground, make himself seem bigger and more dangerous than he actually was. The sight was so absurd that Lucy couldn't help herself. A small giggle escaped her lips. The sound made the Talon warrior freeze. He spun toward her hiding spot, his crest flashing bright yellow with confusion. The alien had been so focused on the incomprehensible honey badger that he had forgotten about his original mission. Lucy's giggle turned into a full laugh as Bruno took advantage of the distraction to charge the alien's heel again. The warrior hopped backward, bumping into a bank of computers and nearly falling over. "This cannot be happening," the alien muttered in his own language, his translation device crackling with confusion. But it was happening. A creature that should have been easy prey was treating him like prey instead, and the human child was laughing at him. Bruno seemed to understand that he had an audience now. He sat back on his haunches and made another challenging sound, daring the alien to come closer. When the Talon warrior tentatively stepped forward, Bruno immediately charged again, driving the much larger creature backward. Lucy laughed harder, the sound echoing through the research facility. She had been terrified for hours, certain that she was going to die. But watching tiny Bruno fearlessly attack the massive alien hunter struck her as the funniest thing she had ever seen. The laughter had an unexpected effect on the other Earth, predators in the room. Atlas the bear stood up from where he had been hiding and made a deep chuffing sound that almost seemed like laughter too. The wolves began wagging their tails. Even the mountain lion's ears perked up with what looked like amusement. The alien warrior found himself surrounded by Earth predators who were no longer acting like prey. They were watching the honey badger's one creature war with what could only be described as approval. This was wrong. Everything about this situation violated the natural laws the Crimson Talons understood. Small creatures feared large creatures. Prey ran from predators. Different species competed instead of cooperating. But here was a tiny mammal that refused to acknowledge its own certain death, backed up by massive predators that seemed to think the whole situation was entertaining, while a human child laughed with pure joy at the sight of her impossible defender. The warrior's comm device crackled. "Status report," came Commander Voss's voice. "Sir, I have located a human child, but there are complications." "What kind of complications?" The warrior looked down at Bruno, who was now sitting calmly between him and Lucy's hiding spot, grooming, his paws as if nothing unusual had happened. I'm not sure how to explain it, sir." Lucy's laughter filled the room again as Bruno looked up at the confused alien with an expression that seemed to say, "What's your next move?" Commander Voss stood in the main detention area, studying the captured human colonists with growing irritation. The hunt should have been over by now. These soft creatures should have surrendered immediately when faced with superior predators. Instead, they sat calmly in their holding cells, some even talking quietly among themselves. "Explain to me again why your people show no proper fear," Voss demanded of Dr. Michael Williams. Lucy's father looked up from where he sat next to his wife. "What do you mean by proper fear?" "When faced with a superior predator, prey species exhibit predictable behaviors. They panic, they flee, they submit, or they freeze. Your people do none of these things adequately." Dr. Williams exchanged a look with his wife before answering. "I suppose that depends on your definition of a superior predator." The commander's crest flashed red. "I am nearly 9 feet tall. My claws can slice through your metal. My strength is 5 times that of your strongest human. How am I not superior?" "Oh, you're physically superior," Dr. Williams agreed. "But predation isn't just about physical attributes. It's about adaptation, intelligence, and survival strategy." "Elaborate." Sarah Williams leaned forward. "On Earth, humans aren't apex predators because of our claws or teeth. We're apex predators because we turned everything else into tools or allies. We domesticated wolves into dogs, made horses carry us, and convinced plants to grow where we wanted them." Commander Voss's tail lashed with impatience. "Your planet is not here. Your tools are not here. Your allies cannot help you now." "Are you sure about that?" Dr. Williams asked quietly. Before the commander could respond, his communication device buzzed with an urgent message from his hunting team. "Sir, we need reinforcements at the research facility. The situation has become unusual." Define unusual. "The Earth creatures are not behaving according to their species profiles. And sir, we still haven't captured the human child. She appears to have formed some kind of alliance with the animals." Voss's crest darkened to deep purple. "That is impossible. Different species do not form alliances. Bring me a detailed report." 20 minutes later, 3 Talon warriors stood before their commander, their usually pristine scales scratched and their posture showing signs of confusion and frustration. "Report," Voss ordered. The lead warrior, whose name was Korath, struggled to find the right words. "Sir, the small human female has barricaded herself in the animal research facility with several Earth predators. They are protecting her." "Protecting her how?" "The large brown creatures, bears, have positioned themselves to block access corridors. The pack hunters, wolves, are conducting coordinated patrols. The solitary cats are using ambush tactics from elevated positions. Commander Voss processed this information. These are normal predator behaviors. Use superior firepower to neutralize them. We tried, sir, but there's something else. Korath looked uncomfortable. There's a small creature, weighs perhaps 30 pounds, that seems to be coordinating their defensive strategy. A 30-pound creature is coordinating bears and wolves? Yes, sir. It's called a honey badger according to the research files. It shows absolutely no fear response to our presence. When we approach, it advances on us. When we retreat, it follows. When we attempt to go around it, it positions itself to block our path again. Another warrior stepped forward. Sir, the creature's behavior is affecting our psychological readiness. It challenges every assumption we have about natural predator hierarchies. Explain. When faced with a creature that should logically be easy prey, but which acts like an apex predator, our hunting instincts become confused. We find ourselves treating it as a threat rather than prey, which allows the larger Earth creatures to position themselves advantageously. Commander Voss felt his certainty beginning to crack. And the human child? She laughs, sir. She what? Every time we fail to capture her or retreat from the honey badger, she makes sounds of amusement. Loud, joyful sounds. It appears to encourage the Earth creatures and further disrupt our tactical approach. This was wrong. Everything about this situation violated natural law. Prey did not laugh when cornered by predators. Small creatures did not challenge large ones. Different species did not cooperate for mutual defense. Voss decided to see this impossibility for himself. He strode through the research facility corridors, noting the signs of his warriors' struggles, claw marks on walls where they had tried to climb around obstacles, damaged equipment where they had been forced to retreat quickly, the scent of confused frustration that his kind released when their hunting patterns were disrupted. He reached the small mammal research area and immediately saw the problem. A tiny brown and gray creature sat directly in the center of the doorway, grooming its paws with complete calm. Behind it, Lucy Williams was visible through the gaps in some equipment, clearly unharmed and making soft sounds of amusement at something she found entertaining. When the honey badger noticed Commander Voss, it stood up and did something unprecedented in the Talon leader's experience. Instead of fleeing from an obvious apex predator, it walked directly toward him. Bruno stopped 3 feet away from the alien commander and sat down, looking up at the 9-foot creature with what could only be described as polite interest. His posture suggested he was waiting for something. What does it want? Voss asked his warriors. We believe it wants you to leave, sir. It wants me to leave? The commander's voice rose with disbelief. Yes, sir. It seems to consider this its territory, and it appears to be protecting the human child as if she were part of its pack. Commander Voss stared down at the honey badger, trying to understand what he was seeing. The creature showed no signs of fear, submission, or aggression. It simply waited, confident that its presence was sufficient to resolve the situation. This is a scavenger species, Voss said, pulling up the research data on his portable device. It primarily eats insects, small prey, and carrion. It has no pack structure. It should not be capable of the behaviors we are observing. Lucy's voice drifted across the room. Bruno's not just a scavenger. My mom says honey badgers are the toughest animals on Earth for their size. They fight things 50 times bigger than them and win. That is biologically impossible, Commander Voss stated. Is it? Lucy asked, and her question carried an odd weight that made the alien leader pause. Bruno chose that moment to demonstrate exactly what Lucy meant. The honey badger stood up, walked to within touching distance of Commander Voss's feet, and gently, but firmly placed one paw on the alien's scaled toe. The gesture was not aggressive. It was not submissive. It was a statement. I am here, I am not afraid of you. I am not leaving. Commander Voss found himself faced with a choice that had no good options. He could kill the small creature easily, but doing so would require him to acknowledge that he felt threatened by something that weighed less than his own head. He could retreat, but that would mean accepting defeat from prey. He could ignore it, but the creature's calm presence made ignoring it psychologically impossible. Lucy's laughter filled the silence as Commander Voss, leader of an empire spanning 47 worlds, stood frozen by the simple refusal of one small Earth mammal to acknowledge its place in his understanding of how the universe worked. "You know what the funny thing is," Lucy said between giggles. "Bruno probably thinks you're the one acting weird. On Earth, most animals would either fight back or run away by now. You're just standing there letting a honey badger put his paw on your foot." The observation hit Commander Voss like a physical blow. From the honey badger's perspective, he was the one displaying abnormal behavior. The small creature had issued a challenge and was waiting for a response, while the much larger predator hesitated and showed uncertainty. In the hierarchy, Bruno understood. That made Commander Voss the weaker animal. For the first time in his long career as a hunter, Commander Voss began to wonder if his species had fundamentally misunderstood what it meant to be an apex predator. These humans didn't just have unusual tools or unpredictable allies. They had a completely different understanding of courage, one that turned every assumption about strength and weakness upside down. And their laughter, in the face of impossible odds, suggested they found the whole situation not terrifying but amusing. That realization was more unsettling than any physical threat he had ever faced. Lucy discovered that being trapped in a research facility with Earth's predators was like being part of the world's strangest family. After Bruno's confrontation with Commander Voss, the other animals seemed to understand that the small human belonged with them. Atlas the bear had claimed the main corridor as his territory, refusing to let any talons pass. The wolves, Rex and Luna, worked together to patrol the side passages. Even Amber, the mountain lion, had abandoned her usual solitary nature to help guard the facility. But it was Bruno who seemed to understand the bigger picture. The honey badger spent his time moving between different groups of animals, somehow communicating with them in ways Lucy couldn't quite figure out. She watched him touch noses with Rex, sit quietly next to Atlas for a few minutes, then trot over to where Amber rested on top of a tall equipment rack. "You're organizing them, aren't you?" Lucy whispered to Bruno during one of his visits to her hiding spot. "You're turning them into a team." The honey badger looked at her with those bright black eyes and made a soft, chittering sound that she had learned meant agreement. Lucy started paying closer attention to her father's research notes, which were stored on a tablet she had grabbed before hiding. Dr. Williams had written extensively about animal behavior and pack dynamics. As she read, Lucy began to understand what Bruno was doing. The Earth predators weren't just randomly defending their territory. They were using coordinated tactics that took advantage of each species' natural strengths. The bears blocked and intimidated. The wolves scouted and flanked. The cats used stealth and surprise. And Bruno served as the fearless leader who never showed doubt or weakness. When the Talons made their next assault on the facility, Lucy was ready. She had positioned herself where she could see most of the main area through gaps in the equipment. The aliens entered in a formation designed for hunting large prey, spread out, weapons ready, moving with the confident precision of experienced killers. They had not prepared for what they found. Atlas emerged from behind a bank of computers, rising to his full height of over 8 feet. The massive bear didn't charge or roar. He simply stood there blocking the main corridor with his bulk, looking completely relaxed. The lead Talon warrior raised his energy weapon, but before he could fire, Rex appeared on his left flank. The wolf didn't attack either. He just stood, their ears forward, tail held high, watching the alien with calm attention. "Sir," the warrior reported into his comm device, "the predators are using pack tactics." "Impossible," Commander Voss's voice crackled back. "Earth predators don't form mixed species packs." "With respect, sir, they appear to be doing exactly that, If summoned by the conversation, Amber dropped silently from her perch onto a shelf directly above the warriors. The mountain lion stretched lazily, her claws extending just enough to scrape against the metal surface. The sound made all 3 aliens look up nervously. "They have us surrounded," another warrior reported. "Buy pets," Commander Voss snapped. "Domesticated animals. Use your weapons." But when the first warrior aimed at Atlas, Bruno appeared. The honey badger came from nowhere, charging directly at the warrior's feet with such sudden fury that the alien jerked his weapon upward. The energy blast scorched the ceiling harmlessly. Lucy couldn't contain her laughter. The sight of the tiny honey badger causing a trained warrior to miss an easy shot was hilarious. Her giggles echoed through the facility, and this time she noticed something amazing happening. The Earth predators were responding to her laughter like a signal. When she laughed, Atlas stepped forward, forcing the aliens to back up. When she giggled, Rex and Luna moved to new positions, tightening their encirclement. When she burst into full belly laughs at Bruno's latest charge, Amber dropped to a lower perch, bringing her closer to striking range. The animals were using her laughter as a coordination signal, treating her joy as confirmation that their tactics were working. "Fall back," the lead warrior ordered. "We need a new approach." But falling back proved impossible. Every time the Talons tried to retreat, Bruno followed them, maintaining just enough pressure to keep them off balance. The other predators adjusted their positions accordingly, ensuring the aliens couldn't establish any position of strength. Lucy watched the entire operation with growing amazement. Her mother's research notes had mentioned that different species sometimes formed temporary alliances in the wild, but this was beyond anything scientists had documented. The Earth predators were working together like a military unit, with Bruno serving as their fearless scout and Lucy's laughter providing tactical feedback. "Sir, the situation has deteriorated," Korath reported to Commander Voss over the comm. "We cannot establish control over the research facility. The Earth predators have adapted their behavior patterns in real time." "Adapted how?" "They appear to be learning from our tactics and developing countermeasures. When we use energy weapons, they position themselves to force us into poor firing angles. When we advance in formation, they coordinate to split our forces. When we attempt to retreat, the small aggressive one, the honey badger, prevents withdrawal." Commander Voss felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest: doubt. "Are you telling me that animals are outmaneuvering trained Talon warriors?" "Sir, I don't think these are just animals anymore. They're functioning as a tactical unit with the human child serving as some kind of command element." In the research facility, Lucy was coming to the same realization from the other direction. She wasn't just hiding from the aliens anymore. She was part of something bigger, a team where species that had never worked together on Earth were combining their abilities in ways that created something new and powerful. "You guys are amazing," she whispered to the assembled predators. "We're like a real pack now." Bruno chittered his agreement and settled down next to her feet, but his eyes remained fixed on the corridor where the confused Talon warriors were, trying to figure out their next move. Lucy thought about all the stories her parents had told her about humanity's history. How ancient humans had survived ice ages and natural disasters not because they were the strongest or fastest, but because they could work together and adapt to anything. How they had explored dangerous places and discovered new things by treating the unknown as an adventure rather than a threat. Maybe that was what made humans different. They didn't just survive dangerous situations, they found ways to enjoy them. "You know what, Bruno?" she said to the honey badger. "I think we're going to win this, and it's going to be really, really funny." The honey badger looked up at her and made a sound that could have been laughter too. Outside, Commander Voss was beginning to understand that he had not conquered a simple prey species. He had stumbled into something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that treated danger as entertainment and turned potential enemies into friends. The thought terrified him more than any weapon ever had. 6 months later, Lucy Williams walked through the same corridors of Research Station Alpha. But everything had changed. Instead of empty hallways, the facility buzzed with activity as beings from dozens of different worlds came to study what the galaxy now called the New Haven Method. Bruno trotted beside her, wearing a small collar that identified him as Chief Diplomatic Advisor, a title that made Lucy giggle every time she read it. The honey badger had become famous across known space as the creature who had stared down the Crimson Talons and won. "Today we have visitors from the Spiral Coalition," Lucy told Bruno as they headed toward the main conference room. "They want to understand how their prey species can work together to resist predator empires." The transformation had begun 3 days after the initial confrontation, when Talon reinforcements arrived expecting to find a conquered colony. Instead, They discovered their elite hunting warriors trapped in the research facility, unable to advance or retreat because of tactical coordination between species that should have been incapable of cooperation. Commander Voss had been forced to call for additional support twice before finally requesting a direct meeting with Director Hayes. The conversation that followed changed everything. "We do not understand your species," Voss had admitted, his crest dim with confusion. "Nothing about your responses follows logical patterns." Director Hayes, now freed from detention, had smiled. "That's because you're thinking about this wrong. You see predators and prey. We see potential friends and interesting challenges." Friends? Voss's translator had struggled with the concept. "Commander, let me ask you something. When your people encounter a new species, what's your first thought? Assessment of threat level and resource value. When humans encounter a new species, our first thought is usually, I wonder what it's like to be them. We're curious about how you think, what you enjoy, what makes you afraid or happy. We want to understand you." Lucy had watched from the doorway as her parents and the other scientists began explaining human psychology to the bewildered alien commander. They talked about how humans actively sought out dangerous experiences for fun, climbing mountains, exploring caves, racing vehicles at high speeds. They described how humans had turned their planet's most dangerous predators into companions and partners. "You're telling me your species deliberately exposes itself to mortal danger for entertainment?" Voss had asked. "We call it adventure," Dr. Williams had replied. "And yes, we've been doing it for thousands of years." The breakthrough came when Lucy herself had approached Commander Voss, with Bruno walking confidently beside her. "Do you want to meet Atlas?" she had asked the alien leader. "He's really gentle once you get to know him." Commander Voss had stared down at the small human child who was offering to introduce him to a creature that could easily kill him. "Why would you want me to meet this bear?" "Because meeting new friends is fun," Lucy had said simply. That simple statement had shattered something fundamental in the Talon commander's worldview. The concept of treating potential threats as potential friends was so alien to his thinking that it forced him to reconsider everything he believed about how the universe worked. Now, as Lucy led her latest tour group through the facility, she could see similar transformations happening with other species. Representatives from worlds that had suffered under Talon rule were learning that cooperation could be more powerful than conquest. The key insight, Dr. Williams was explaining to a group of insectoid diplomats, is that humans don't see strength and kindness as opposites. We see them as complementary traits. You can be fierce in defense of your friends while still being gentle with those who need protection. Bruno demonstrated this principle by first showing the visitors his famous intimidation display, the same fearless advance that had confused the Talon warriors. Then he sat calmly while Lucy scratched behind his ears, showing how the same creature could be both formidable and affectionate. The visitors took careful notes as Atlas performed his coordination exercises with the wolf pack, showing how former predator-prey relationships could become partnerships when both sides chose cooperation over domination. But it was the laughter that really fascinated them. "Why do humans make joy sounds when facing dangerous situations?" asked an amphibious representative from the Delta sector. Lucy thought about this question seriously. "I guess because danger can be exciting if you have friends to face it with. And because sometimes the best way to beat something scary is to find the funny parts of it." The funny parts? Like how Commander Voss kept backing away from Bruno, even though he could have stepped on him. It looked silly because Bruno's so small but so brave. When something looks silly, it stops being scary. Commander Voss, who was now serving as a reformed predator liaison for the new Galactic Alliance, made a sound that might have been alien laughter. The child speaks truth. Her laughter revealed that our intimidation tactics only work if the target chooses to be intimidated. The tour concluded in the main courtyard where a monument had been erected. It showed a small honey badger sitting calmly while various alien species gathered around him peacefully. The inscription read, "To Bruno and all Earth's teachers, who showed the galaxy that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to face fear with friends." Lucy read the inscription aloud for her visitors, then looked down at Bruno. "What do you think, pretty good for a 30-pound scavenger?" Bruno made his chittering agreement sound and walked over to greet the alien visitors, showing no more concern about their strange appearances than he had about the Crimson Talons months earlier. As the delegation departed, promising to share the New Haven method with their homeworlds, Lucy realized that the galaxy was changing in ways nobody had expected. Not through conquest or superior technology, but through the simple idea that every species had something valuable to offer if you approached them with curiosity instead of fear. That evening, as Lucy sat with her parents watching the sun set over New Haven's alien landscape, Bruno curled up in her lap like a contented house cat. In the distance, she could see Atlas playing with his Talon study partner, who was learning about cooperative behavior by observing bear family dynamics. "Do you think we really changed everything?" Lucy asked her parents. Dr. Williams smiled. "I think you and Bruno showed everyone that there's more than one way to be strong. And sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to laugh at it until it stops seeming impossible." Lucy giggled, a sound that had become the unofficial anthem of peaceful resistance across 47 worlds. In her lap, Bruno opened one eye and made a soft sound of satisfaction. The honey badger had stared down an alien predator and won. But more importantly, he had helped a human child discover that courage, friendship, and laughter could change the entire galaxy.